Hello and welcome to the New Indian Express. Today we have with us Manjeev Singh Puri, an Indian diplomat who has his career spanning over 35 years. During this time, he worked as an ambassador to various countries and also served as the deputy permanent representative to the UN from India. Today he will talk to us about a very pressing geopolitical issue. Hello sir, welcome to the New Indian Express.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Okay, sir. Now, this pressing geopolitical issue, which I mentioned, is the war that's going on between Iran on one side, and the US and Israel on the other. Now, while this war was launched, talks were on between these three countries. So, what does that tell you about the diplomacy in the current world order?
Alan, $1 million question, and one that I am myself grappling with. Was there sincerity in the talks that were taking place? Was there some ability to be able to give and take? There are people who say that the Iranians should have agreed to everything that the American side wanted in terms of enrichment, etc. Was this really possible? Was there at all an interest, even if they, let me say, capitulated in agreeing to it? My own understanding is I don't think so. Let me take you back. When Mr. Trump was elected president in 2016, soon thereafter, he got the United States out of this big multilateral agreement which had been agreed to with Iran on the curtailment of their nuclear program called the JPOA. It continues to be a matter of great concern to him in his understanding and his understanding of politics. I don't think we should de-link all of this with the fact that Iran is an oil-rich country. And in the understanding of Mr. Trump, this is my understanding of his mind, oil is a very important currency in terms of money, wealth, and energy security. Let's not forget Venezuela, which has the similar kind of oil wealth. And in his understanding, this business of Iran is interlinked with all of this. And then comes the question of Israel, an old, not just ally, but a country which has hugely had United States backing all throughout. Their understanding of the threat of Israel, of Iran, their understanding of what had to be done. And so please remember the attacks on Iran, which were supposed to have got rid of their nuclear facilities. These were carried out again when so-called negotiations were taking place, isn't it? I think people forget that there was some kind of discussions even on at that time. Were therefore these discussions truly serious, in which there was some way that you move forward a few inches, I'll move forward a few inches and we can find? I don't know the answers. Many people are not very sure of that. And so therefore, each of these particular things are important. Now, when you come to diplomacy, as far as I am concerned, at that time, there was need for such negotiations and talks. But today, the need for diplomacy is perhaps even greater. Can you afford to have a large country's population in a situation which is like a wrecking ball out there? No. Can you have a destabilization of the Middle East? The answer is no. Will it result in that? It's quite possible. It's very easy to talk in terms of a hegemonic power getting its way and sorting things out. Does it really sort things out? No. Iraq continues to remain destabilized after all those years. Libya remains destabilized and so on. So therefore, I think what should not have done but did happen, that's the nature of the way countries exercise their hegemony and their national interests. But does diplomacy have a role? In my opinion, huge, and at the moment particularly important, and important to be exercised by those who perhaps have a friendlier ear both with the United States and with Israel.
Okay, sir. Now, a lot of the experts are saying, now you yourself pointed out the nuclear program. That is what the US constantly keeps saying, that we are after Iran's nuclear program. We do not want this country to go through with a nuclear program. But there are other countries that are on the enemy side of the US, which have their own nuclear program, like North Korea. So would you say that oil is the only motivating factor other than nuclear program over here? Because US is not going after North Korea like it went after Iran.
So you're very right. I don't think so. Look, if the American bombings in June obliterated Iran's nuclear capacities, then I don't know what the argument is. This time the argument was that Iran was building a huge ballistic missile program. Obviously, it hasn't reached any conclusion, otherwise the Iranian strikes would have been much more. And so many people say that in doing what you've done, have you by any chance told people that if you don't have it, i.e. what North Korea has got, you may get what happens to Iran, where it's more bluster than actually having it. I don't know the answers to all of that. But my understanding is that oil is one certain part of the whole thing. Secondly is the issue, as I said, Israel, the United States holding its back, the entire issue of that particular geopolitics, the Shia-Sunni divide, which is a very important element in the entire Middle East, and Iran, not for today, for 1,000 years, being the outlier in that entire game vis-a-vis the rest of Sunni Middle East. And then finally is the issue of legacy. Let's not underestimate that. For President Trump, I have no doubt he'd like to be remembered as a hugely consequential president, and nothing matters more than if you've been able to do what you may say, geographical accretion and national security certainty. Similarly is the case with Prime Minister Netanyahu. There are issues of politics in terms of the corruption case, etc. Forget all of that. But the question of how to be remembered as someone who destabilized the region or somebody who really gained hugely. These are matters of legacy, and let's not underestimate these as being of great importance to men who have held leadership positions.
Okay, sir. Now, where does India stand in this fight? That is a question I think a lot of people are asking, especially after PM Modi's visit to Israel just a little time before this attack happened.
No, you're right, and we have a reason to be concerned. We have a reason to want to know what's happening. The Foreign Ministry has put out a statement calling for restraint and calling for dialogue. Rightly so. There's precious little else that can be done. Look, we may not be in the immediate vicinity of what is happening, but we are not too far away. We have a very large diaspora in the Middle East. We have a great deal of connectivity issues there. Indeed, flights from India which go westwards go over the Middle East. So we have issues of energy security, huge issues. Yesterday itself, people say the price of oil has gone up. If the Straits of Hormuz becomes, for some reason, unnavigable, then it could become several months of problems. We don't know all this. These are all conjectures. We have huge diasporas across every country in the Middle East who have contributed hugely to India. And of course, the entire question of destabilization in the world in general and in the Middle East, with whom we have not just strategic interests, we have civilizational interests. They are in our extended neighborhood. They are countries of importance. So therefore, extremely important for us. We are worried about our own diaspora. Hopefully there will be nothing there. But we would, in my opinion, be very much interested in hostilities to be completely wound down, give dialogue a chance. That's necessary and important. Look, we understand that the nuclear program of Iran is an issue as far as the West. But we also understand that there have to be international ways and means that you bring them around to the table to what is an acceptable thing. In my understanding, and I echo what is something that the Prime Minister has said in the past, it's not an era of war. Having said all this, we recognize that there is war being unfolded. What can we do? Urge restraint and seek that we start dialogue. That's particularly important.
Do you think that an embargo or a negotiated peace could come upon? Because Trump shows no signs of slowing down. He has publicly declared that the bombings will continue. So do you think that this will continue until both the Israel and US have achieved its objectives?
Well, what are their objectives itself is something that we don't know. If you say it was to change the leadership in Iran, that's happened. If you say it was obliteration of their nuclear program, you said you did it in June. If ballistic missile program, you know it hasn't arrived. So we don't. What is it? I have been talking about oil, a kind of oil of the Iranians being under the control of, in a sense, the Western oil companies, the United States, etc. Is it? Could be that. I don't think the Iranians would be very averse to the idea. I don't know the ideas of all this. It's very difficult for us sitting here far away to pontificate on all of this. But in my opinion, it is important for those who have the abilities, and there may not be many who have the abilities to reach out and say, look, some of the elements which you said were important have been achieved. Let us try and give dialogue and diplomacy another chance. And I want to say something to you. This is my personal view. This is the time that the one set of people who do have some abilities, they may be still restricted, it's the Europeans. Why? Because they do have a certain ear in the United States, a certain ear in Israel. They are also people with a certain might and abilities to do things. Are they being impacted? Certainly. Europe is not too far from Iran and where they are. The Turks themselves are important players. We would certainly be willing to do what we can on it. But, let me say, those who are much more integral to all of this, can they play a role? Should they play a role? In my opinion, without doubt, they should play a role. Because nobody can be finally very much benefited by a destabilization of a major region of this kind and the consequences that it has for large sections of a very large population.
You talked about regime change, but has the regime that is much more favorable to the US and Israel, has that change happened? Do you think that it's only if that change has happened will there be an end to this?
I have no way of knowing it. The people who are identified stands eliminated. Is Iran a country where there is inherent weakness? We don't know. We don't know what would happen. How long will the population and the people be able to resist? One should be very clear that proud as the Iranian people are, good as their structures are, no matter if individuals go, they continue. How much, let me say, of a hurt can you sustain before you, in a sense, give up? And then time comes back again. Remember, of course, the Iranians are an old civilization. Many people have pointed out that, we don't know the last laugh, where it goes. We don't know the answer. But do we have the opportunities, and should we allow this to happen for some pretty drastic and long-term aims? My understanding is, and I hope that many would say, that is too far a cry in terms of what you should do. Try and see if we can take things forward, because the hurt is not only in terms of the politicians, the leaders, and those who were calling the shots, but it's the people. And surely in the year 2026, we owe it to this particular element of civilizational legacy that you are mindful of what is happening. After all, it's a whole region which is being hurt as a result. Are the people in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, in Kuwait, in Qatar, in Bahrain, are they sitting sanguine and very happy with what is happening? It can't be the case. And so therefore, if there are any kinds of threats, now it's all very well to say there is a cost to removing a threat. Will you remove it? We don't know. As we said, you may be able to bring about changes in people, but usually national interests, what bodes well for you, doesn't change in countries. Let me take you back to a long time back. The Tsar was removed, and the communist USSR that came about had exactly the same policy. That's the nature of these particular things. You have to live with it, but particularly important in my view is to, at the moment, say you've achieved certain proximate goals. Can we give dialogue a chance? Can we see what we can do, or let me say the oil front, the nuclear front, because it is important that, people are not put under such kind of pressure, and that to people in such a large region.
Do you think Iran is alone in this fight? Because the US and the Israel have already declared that they are allied in this fight. Do you think Iran is alone in this fight, or do they have invisible, I again quote, invisible backers?
Look, they may have proxies, but fundamentally speaking, Iran is a large country, an old civilization. And in fact, what is this telling you? That at the end of the day, you are alone in any fight, especially with a superpower. Nobody else is going to come to your aid. Surely the Russians, the Chinese and others were supporting the Iranians, but will they come to their aid with boots on the ground? Look, when the Russians undertook action in Ukraine, none of the Western world put boots on the ground in Ukraine. So when superpowers are involved, with large militaries of this kind are involved, people offer support, maybe even military hardware, etc. But do people really know? The answer is no. And this is a lesson that everybody needs to learn across the world, that be mindful. Power is absolute, and huge power is hugely absolute. And in each of these matters, at the end of the day, you may have spawned a lot of proxies, but you are, in a sense, alone in terms of the proximate fight. Many may stand with you. After all, the aggression against Iran has been condemned by the Russians, by the Brazilians, by South Africans, by many others. But are they in a position? The answer is that you are alone.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. That's what you. My first question you said was $1 million question. You have given us $1 billion answers. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving us such detailed answer. Thank you for giving answers from your experience. Thank you.
You.